All right. Welcome, everyone. We're going to give folks just about 30 seconds to join. But thanks so much for folks who are already in the webinar. I feel like being prompt for Zoom sessions these days is quite challenging. So thanks for being on time. We'll give folks a little bit of time to trickle in, and then we'll jump right into today's conversation. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. All right, I think we are going to get started. So today's session is recorded. So we'll follow up in following the conversation with the recording link. At any point in the conversation, if you want to drop questions into the chat, my colleague Monica and I will either cover them live in the flow of conversation if we see them. If not, we're going to leave at least 10 minutes at the end of today's conversation to cover any and all questions. So feel free to drop them in during the conversation or hold them to the end, but we'll cover everyone's questions. So welcome to today's conversation. The title of today is Supercharge Your Team, the 5 must-have competencies for today's managers. And I'll just share maybe a couple anecdotes in terms of why are we focused on managers today. The first one is the number of HR and people leaders and L&D leaders that we partner with who come to us with some kind of story along the lines of, we just promoted a lot of superstar individual contributors, and now they're really struggling in their manager role, is not an uncommon request or conversation that we're hearing in kind of today's world. So that's number one. Number two, if I could see everyone's faces and we were all on camera together, I would probably ask something along the lines of, like, raise your hand if you feel like managing people today in 2024 is different than it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And I would imagine a lot of hands come up because we're all living in just a different time. Remote, I just saw a virtual hand go up, so thank you. But remote and hybrid work, the world we're living in, managing people is just different in 2024 than it has been over the last decade. And then the last thing that we always hear about, and sometimes it sounds a bit cliche, but I think it truly is real. And that's that saying that, people don't leave companies, they leave their managers. And managers have such a significant impact on employee engagement, business results, retention, et cetera. So this core group of people, there's a lot of change that's happening in terms of management. There's a lot of impact. There's a lot of results. And it's just very prevalent that this group of people is struggling to kind of keep up with all the demands of today's workforce. So that's why we're focused on managers. That's why we're focused on hopefully talking about supercharging your team. So with that as a backdrop, let's just do some introductions. Monica, do you want to go first and share your background?
Happy to. Hi, everybody. It is lovely to see you here. My name is Monica. I have about 15 years of experience in adult education, about 10 of which are in the formal employee training L&D space. And I am a big learning nerd. And I'm excited to spend some time chatting with you today about manager training, manager competencies, all of the things that we are learning over here at Electives. To help support you as you're working on, no doubt, similar projects where you are.
Awesome. Thank you, Monica. And for folks who I haven't met before, my name is Jason Lavender, based in Boston. I'm one of the co-founders here at Electives. And I'll just give a quick kind of backstory. My career was mostly in HR consulting. Then I was working at a healthcare startup. And I actually met my co-founder in business school at MIT. And we were inspired to start Electives based on a kind of a perfect storm of events where we both had experienced what we would sadly call bad training experiences at our prior jobs, while at the same time we're being exposed to just really, really interesting learning experiences at school. And we wanted to try to change that feeling so that corporate training had that same kind of excitement and energy that we were experiencing at school. So we'll dive a little bit further into kind of what Electives is, and then I'll turn it back to Monica to dive into those 5 competencies that we feel like are must-haves for managers today. So with that as a quick backdrop, I'll just do a 2-minute frame in terms of what is Electives, why do we exist, so that we can kind of shift our point of view into the world of manager training. So to kick things off, there's really 4 parts of the electives kind of platform and experience. The first thing is we always talk about extraordinary instructors. So we wanted to kind of debunk this feeling of corporate training needs to be delivered by only people called corporate trainers. We feel like there's just so many other experts in the world, whether that's astronauts or C-suite executives or high school principals or Navy SEALs or FBI agents. If they are really good facilitators in the adult learning space, then in our minds, they are really good, quote, corporate trainers. And so we get really excited about just kind of changing the definition of a corporate trainer and bringing really unique people into the lives of employees. The second thing we are hyper focused on is we always try to optimize for live interactive learning. So I mentioned kind of my prior experience as an employee taking different training classes. I had a really hard time engaging with some of those pre-recorded kind of content libraries where you're clicking through the motions and taking quizzes. So everything that we focus on and try to optimize is live, virtual, interactive learning. And then I'll kind of bucket the last two pieces together, platform tools and support. We have all these interesting instructors. We focus on live learning. There's so many other things that we know need to make that a successful experience, whether that's real-time analytics, whether that's recommendations, whether that's access to post-class learning resources. All of that kind of really makes the electives platform the electives platform. So here's just a quick snapshot of all of our expert instructors. There's about 20 or so on this page. There's close to 200 that are on the platform. And those 200 instructors cover almost 500 different live classes. So our learning experience team that Monica leads is constantly sourcing and vetting and interviewing all kinds of folks in terms of instructor backgrounds. But you can see some of their backgrounds here. And one of the things that we always joke about is people say, who's your favorite electives instructor? And I think all of us say they're all our favorites. We could take classes from these people all the time because they're just super interesting and super engaging. The types of classes that are on the platform are, again, across the 500, they really fall into what we typically hear as like the soft skills or power skills or human skills bucket. So this is just a little screenshot of 10 of those 500 classes. And you can see there's a lot of classes on leadership and manager training and innovation and communication. So all of those classes exist. Companies can take them and bring them into their organization. And they're all focused, again, on really developing people. The one thing that we typically don't do is compliance training. We haven't found a way to make compliance training super interesting, and so it just hasn't fit the electives style of class yet. The last thing I'll share, just to kind of frame who is electives, and then I'm going to turn it over to Monica to dig into the competencies, is one of the things that we always hear is it's really great that there's 500 classes on the platform, but how do I actually kind of take those classes and put them into a program or get the right employees into the right classes? So I'll just touch on kind of two different ways that we think about this. The first one is those top three circles. Those recommend different programs that we would build for companies. So again, if you think of the 500 classes, sometimes we use the term like 500 ingredients. So those are 500 ingredients. And our team has then put together a program or a package to say, for early careers who need business foundations training, these are the best classes from that pool of content. And this is the perfect program for early careers. The second one, which we're going to focus on more today, is what are the best classes in that kind of pool of classes that modern managers need to be as effective as they can in 2024. And the third example here is across the whole company. If you're trying to build a high performance culture, what are the classes and what's that sequence of learning that helps contribute to that high performance culture? The second thing, which I'll just kind of briefly hit on, is a separate type of learning that we have at Electives called Electives Membership. Membership actually gives employees all the choice to take whatever classes they want to take. So every month, your employees can pick 2 live classes, and they can pick whatever classes are most relevant or most helpful to them in the moment. And you take the kind of decision-making out from the HR and people team or business leaders, and you actually put the decision in the hands of employees. So those are kind of the 2 different types of learnings. We're going to dive a lot deeper with Monica to just kind of understand how do we pick these classes, how do we build these programs, and what competencies are most important. So Monica, I'll turn it over to you.
Fantastic. Well, I want to start by actually hearing a little bit more from all of you who are joining us today. So we've put together a quick little poll that we'd love you to vote in just to get a sense of where you all are when you think about manager training within your organization. This poll is anonymous, so bear that in mind as you're answering. We'll give you just a few seconds here to put your vote in, but I see a lot of votes coming in already. All right. Looking good. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and reveal the poll results here, so we can take a look as a group. So we have a pretty decent spread, but we're kind of peaking around the neutral, unsure area. I'd be curious to hear from you all. You can let us know in the chat. You can chat directly with me and Jason through the course of the session if you want to, but would be curious to hear for those of you in the neutral, unsure section, whether that's because you don't know what the manager training is in your org, or whether you're just not sure what your confidence level is in that manager training program. But this is not unusual. So I want to just to say up front that you are not alone. I was just looking at a Mercer study that they did of HR leaders within the United States, and 44% of them said that for 2024, one of their top 10 priorities was improving people manager skills. So this is a common need across the space. Not too surprised by these poll results here. Thank you for sharing. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on here. I want to talk a little bit about why this trend exists. So we saw it in the poll. We've seen it in things like that Mercer research that I mentioned. Why is all of this so hard? So finding or creating a highly relevant manager training experience is pretty difficult, and it's difficult for a bunch of different reasons, no doubt some of which you've personally experienced. So one is a logistics problem. So there's limited time that managers have. Onboarding schedules are different. So you may have brand new managers who are onboarding in April, and then you have other managers who are onboarding in October. They're staggered. They may be coming in with different levels of experience with management in general. And you end up with this weird patchwork effect of skills, where some people has one kind of training experience, some people have a dramatically different training experience, and then you have this inconsistency of skill sets across the group. So that's one problem. Another problem beyond logistics is the information problem. So on the next slide here, I'm going to talk a little bit about why skill assessment is so difficult in this space. What you're looking at here may look familiar to some of you, but this is what we call the Dunning-Kruger effect. Which is basically what we see from this graph, is it's really difficult to self-assess your own skills. And the fact is, you can't be in every conversation that the manager is having with their direct report. So because we can't be there to actually assess the skills being delivered in live time, we have to try to measure those skills in lots of sort of secondhand, third-hand ways, including through self-reporting. But the problem is, if you ask somebody, how good are you at delivering feedback, or how good are you at inclusive leadership, they're unlikely to be able to accurately measure their current abilities. All of us are. It's just sort of a fact of how skill development and learning works. So you can't tell how they're doing. Their direct reports may be able to give you some indicators. So my guess is that a bunch of you use like employee engagement aggregate results, for example, as like a little bit of an indicator that you think something might be amiss. But employees themselves or those direct reports may also not have a complete picture of what managers should be doing within an organization. So it's really incomplete information all around, which makes this puzzle pretty difficult. So we've been working to simplify and try to develop some quick ways to assess manager needs. And instead of asking what each manager needs, which as we just discussed is actually kind of a difficult endeavor for a few reasons, we instead took a really big step back and started asking ourselves some pretty simple questions about where the team as a whole is headed and how confident everybody is in their ability to get to that destination. And what's standing in the way. So we've been gathering data from interviews, from surveys, and from engagement with our platform, and we found a few interesting things that we've sort of pulled together into a manager competency framework that really underlies the manager training that we deliver. So on the slide, we see five terms. The things that we found that generally stand in the way of teams accomplishing their goals generally fall into one of these 5 categories. And we have a little ocean scene here because you can kind of think about this like if a team is a group of people who are on a boat together in the ocean, heading to an island or to land or to some destination, you can kind of think about it in terms of what are the things that need to go right in order for that group of people working together to accomplish that shared goal. So number 1, they need to trust in their team. Number 2, they need to actually all be rowing in the same direction. That's pretty critical for getting from point A to point B. They need to be able to row or willing to row even when they're tired. They need to be efficient, so no wasted effort in the process. And then finally, they need to be willing and able to adapt to changes that may occur in their environment, that may occur on the boat itself. They need to be able to switch directions if it turns out that they actually need to be headed somewhere else. So we sort of took this big picture information about the challenges that teams experience, and then we're able to then take one step forward and say, okay, what actually is the role that a manager plays in supporting each of these competencies for the team? So let's start with trust and talk a little bit about the manager role in creating a sense of trust on a team. The choices that managers make have a huge impact on psychological safety for individuals and the team as a whole. Managers can model respect and inclusion for direct reports on their teams. This is all a huge component of team culture, and it's foundational to high-performing teams. So for every individual to do their best work, they really need to be able to trust in leadership, trust in each other, and trust that their contributions are valued. And there's a lot of research out there to back this up, so I'm guessing that nobody here is surprised to discover that trust matters. There's a Gallup poll recently that showed that employees who trust their leaders are 61% more likely to stay with their company. They have a 50% employee engagement rate on average compared to 5% for employees who do not trust their leaders. So pretty significant amount of research out there showing that trust is a pretty critical component and that managers play a really big role in it. The second competency that we discussed, alignment, is again about that question of are we actually all rowing in the same direction? And managers, again, play a really crucial role in ensuring that this alignment exists. So they give a sense of direction of where the organization is headed and how the team's work fits into that larger goal. And their ability to do things like give clear feedback to employees and being able to say, hey, you're headed in the right direction, keep doing that, or you're not headed in the right direction, please try something else now, is pretty critical to keeping individuals in the team all working together and on the right path. So supporting clear objectives and goals. This is another component of that sort of sense of direction, and structures of accountability that managers are crucial in creating are the tools that they can use to help keep everybody on track. And this is something that I am sure is felt in the HR and people ops space. I know accountability and feedback are clear and critical components of an organization's talent management process. So making sure that the managers are all doing this in a consistent way is pretty important. Third big competency, manager competency that we want to dig into here is around motivation. So again, in the sort of boat analogy we were using here, people aren't willing to row hard, the team is not going to go anywhere. This is most noticeable in its impact on employee retention, which is, I know, again, one of those metrics that you all probably are tracking pretty closely within your organizations. But it also impacts things like morale, it impacts productivity, it impacts things like employee mental health and well-being. So managers play a very critical role in motivating team members, supporting both long-term and short-term skill development, supporting career progression and advancement toward career goals. And this is really, like, at its core, all about thinking about how does a manager help people find meaning in the time that they are devoting to their work, and making sure that they feel that sense of connection that really like empowers them to give their all day to day, even when things are feeling stressful or tough. And we found that for motivation, as just an aside, when given a choice of what to learn within our membership program, so Jason mentioned that within Electives membership, employees have the chance to choose which classes they take. Our most popular classes and certificates among independent contributors are actually those that help them gain leadership skills. So we very much see the signal of employees really want to grow their careers, they want to learn, they want to be strategic, and be able to give powerful presentations and show executive presence and all of these things. And this is part of that motivation equation, is figuring out how we can equip them to gain those skills so that they can progress their careers, and managers play a huge role in that. Fourth, and I know we had a little preview here, we also talked about it when we were talking about being on the boat, but efficiency is our fourth competency. And managers play a really big role with efficiency as well, in terms of their choices about meetings, team communication norms, structure, processes, delegation of tasks, matching talent to task. There's so many choices that managers are making on a daily basis that impact the productivity and efficiency of the teams that they are leading. And this is really powerful both for achieving team goals, but also in terms of, again, reducing burnout and supporting employee mental health and well-being. This is important both for employees themselves for those reasons, and also for managers themselves. We are definitely seeing out in the world right now a pretty significant increase in managers who are feeling burned out, who feel like they have a lot of additional work that is put on their plate. I saw a statistic earlier that the 64% of managers said that their teams were given additional job responsibilities, and at the same time, 42% of them reported budget cuts to their department. So having to do more with less is very much in the water right now, and figuring out how and making sure that managers are equipped and have the skills to find those sources of efficiency really helps them succeed and helps their team succeed. And then last but definitely not least, we have adaptivity. So you all know that in today's world, change is the constant. So the teams that thrive and achieve their goals are the ones that can adapt really quickly to new conditions. And we know that change can be really hard. Managers have a really big impact on team adaptivity. They model change positivity. They can nurture growth mindset. They can set up processes and norms that support agile processes and approaches. And all of those things can be really valuable for helping the team develop those agile skill sets that can really help them support meeting their goals, even when the environment is changing dramatically over time. This is most notable. I'm sure you all are paying lots of attention to all the changes coming that have been coming under the increased use of generative AI, and something like 80% of today's jobs are likely to be affected by generative AI. So again, we see this dramatically changing environment. Managers play a really critical role in helping employees be set up for success in navigating that environment with ease. So those are our 5 competencies. I gave you like a quick overview of all 5, but before I turn it back to Jason, we want to hear from you again. So I have 2 poll questions that I'm going to share with you here. Take a moment to check these 2 questions out, and then we will discuss the results and see what everyone here had to say. All right, looking good. This question is designed to help you think about, based on the things we talked about, what applies, how can you sort of transfer that information to thinking about what's going on in your organization? Okay. Looks fantastic. Thank you all for the engagement here. I know it may be late in the afternoon for some of you. Let's take a look and see what we got here. Okay, so among this group, it looks like about the biggest strength for the folks who are here that you see among your managers is trust, which is wonderful. That is a really core competency that we need managers to have for all the reasons we discussed earlier. And then for the biggest weakness, it looks like we're pretty split across all 5 of these. So this is something that that is not a huge surprise. I will also note that if you had any difficulty answering either of these questions, if you said to yourself, actually, I have no idea. Like, I don't know if trust is the biggest strength or the biggest weakness for my managers. That's another question that we have been digging into ourselves as well, is figuring out what are the easy, relatively low lift ways of evaluating these competencies within a given organization. Because we know that there's survey fatigue out there. You can't see everything that is going on. So we talked about that incomplete information challenge. So if you looked at this question and thought, I don't really know, you're also not alone. And we've been working to figure out some ways to do that with relative ease. All right, thank you all for sharing. I'm going to make this poll go away for you all and pass it back to Jason.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Monica. And thank you again, everybody, for participating in the poll. It's super interesting to just kind of see where folks land there. So I'm going to close the last few minutes and then we'll jump into Q&A. But just to kind of connect the dots here. So when I kicked things off at the beginning, talked about kind of the different parts of the electives platform, unique instructors, 500 classes, 200 different types of instructors, et cetera. And then Monica gave that deep dive in terms of these are the 5 most important competencies for managers. The kind of next natural question is, all right, this is kind of what the platform looks like. This is the core competencies from a research that's needed. How do you actually bring that to life? How do you bring that into an organization? And we have found there's really 2 approaches that we see most of our partners taking. I put the word easy in parentheses. I probably should have put that like in bold and underline and in larger font, because the feedback we've heard consistently, particularly in the last 2 years, is people teams are feeling really lean, stretched really thin, wearing a lot of hats. And so quality, of course, is incredibly important from a manager training perspective, but it also just needs to be easy. It needs to be a light lift. Things need to go live pretty quickly because there's just not a lot of bandwidth within the HR and people team umbrella. So the 2 options I'll walk you through both kind of have that easy underscore theme to both of them. So the 2 different approaches that we've seen most of our partners taking in terms of really making manager training come to life. Option 1 is what we would call individualized learning with a certificate program. So both Monica and I have mentioned the term electives membership. Essentially, that just means you give your employees and your managers a license to be an electives member. Once they're an electives member, they can take any live classes that they want to each month. And for managers in particular, we steer them in terms of what classes cover those competencies that Monica just outlined so that they can earn their manager essential certificate. So they have the flexibility. They could take a well-being class 1 month because that's just, they need that class and that's the most relevant. That may not align with the competency, but over time, whether that's 3 months or 6 months or 7 months, those individual learners will take the classes that are most important to them. And if you think about each of the competencies, there were different skill sets in each of those. And so I had written down the last one employee may need to get better at running meetings. Another employee may need to get better at delegation. And they have that option in membership to really focus on the skills within the competency that they need to work on to be the most effective manager. Option 2, and we'll dive deeper into each of these in a second. This is typically for a larger group of managers. So this kind of combines 2 different types of learning. The first part is cohort-based private learning. So let's just say you had 30 managers at your organization. We would actually structure, a 10-part series that those 30 managers learn together as a cohort. So they might take a class every other week together. They develop that shared language. They're in breakout rooms together. They're really learning as a group. And that could take 5 months. And they're kind of getting the live class, the post-class resources, et cetera. All of the 10 classes reinforce those competencies that Monica just discussed. And once that cohort ends, they then get to tap into that individualized learning approach. So they get the private classes as a team, all that shared language, and then all those managers get to say, you know what, there's still some skills that I need to develop further. I'm going to go off on my own and choose the classes that I want to take, just to kind of reinforce and further the learning. So I'll show you what each of these two look like, and then we'll wrap up and we'll take any and all questions. So here's what option one looks like. Again, this is kind of a typical calendar within the electives membership experience. You can see these very generic kind of buckets of classes on the calendar. So there is almost a live class every single day when you're in the electives membership program. There's a typical distribution of content that happens every month. So there's 4 or so manager classes. There's a couple productivity related classes, some innovation related classes, some well-being classes, et cetera. So that distribution of content stays pretty consistent. But what's really unique and interesting is every month there'll be different classes, different content, different instructors that those employees can take. So the 4 manager classes that are offered in April are going to be completely different from the 4 manager classes that are offered in May and in June and July, et cetera. How to visualize what this looks like from a user perspective is, I can't believe we're approaching May already, but in a couple of weeks, employees who have an electives membership pass would basically get an email and say, June electives have just dropped. They can then log in and they can see a whole calendar of the June classes, and they can look at a progress bar and say, I'm trying to get to that manager essentials certificate program. What are the classes in June that help me earn that certificate? And of course, what are the classes that I need to truly become a better manager? The caveat and the kind of nice and exciting part about membership is all of these employees from all different clients and partners are in classes together. So you're in class with managers from all different types of companies. You're in breakout rooms, sharing different perspectives. And the classes are typically 60 to 90 minutes long, so they can fit, very nicely into a typical work week. So that's kind of what membership looks like. What the skills look like, oops, I'll go back. Going back to the competencies that Monica mentioned, as you go through that membership experience, if you sign up for that June class and it covers the trust competency, and of course you attend the class, we do track attendance, you then earn a portion of that certificate. The next month, you might find a class that covers the feedback competency, and you continue to track that progress. It is completely up to the employee in terms of what classes they want to take, when they want to take them. They can go in any particular order. And like I mentioned, the same group of 10 managers may take 10 or 5 different classes to earn that manager essentials certificate, just because they choose the classes that are most relevant to their manager style. And here's just one more look at what that could look like. So these are membership classes that would be offered in July and August and through September. And you can see this particular individual signed up for developing a culture of trust. Then they signed up for 5 steps to leading great meetings, effective coaching and feedback, leading through change, and talent retention and engagement. That was that individual's kind of structure to earn that manager essentials. As I mentioned, someone else could take 5 different classes and still earn that manager essentials. The really cool part is all of the data in terms of what classes people are taking, leaderboards, completion rates, et cetera, roll back up to the HR people team. And so you can see exactly what types of classes people are taking and how they're doing in terms of earning that certificate. So that's the individual learning only. I'll switch gears into option 2. And option 2 is really kind of starting the manager training experience with those private cohort-based types of classes. So this is typically for groups of 15, 25, 40 larger groups of managers within your organization. And the way that cohort program works is over the course of 5 months, every other week, those managers all meet together and they take a live class, again, 60 to 90 minutes. And they are taking classes that are specifically impacting the competencies that Monica walked through. We also sprinkle in a couple of just really relevant topics in today's kind of modern manager world. And so Monica mentioned just the amount of conversations around generative AI, particularly in that productivity conversation. We want to make sure the modern managers at your company are taking a class on prompt engineering as an example, so that they can use it for their own day-to-day work, but they can also use it to manage their teams in a more effective and efficient way. So this is a typical 10-part program. This is an alphabetical order, not curriculum sequence, but you can see the topics, again, accountability, trust, conflict management, EQ, making sure people have kind of sales and persuasion skills, as well as just kind of a broader business and econ lens as well, to have a really good understanding of how the business is running and what they can do to get the boat to whatever island that your organization is trying to get to. And I'll close with just kind of a recap of kind of the two different ways that we'll implement, and then we'll pause for Q&A. So again, if you think about kind of upskilling just a few managers, if a few people just recently got promoted and you went through a performance review cycle, if you don't have enough people to kind of do that private cohort experience, our recommendation is you put them into the membership experience. You can put other employees into that same membership experience as well, whether those are individual contributors or senior leaders, but they enroll in that membership experience. They take any 2 live classes they want, and then they earn that manager essentials certificate as they complete those classes. If there's a larger team of managers, 15 plus, that's where we would typically recommend having that private cohort learning, building that shared language, just building connection and team bonding. And then after those 5 months are over, give them that option to go into the individual personalized learning as well. And they can continue to refine the skills that they feel like they each need to develop a little bit further. I believe that is the closing slide. So I am going to pause there and just to kind of recap, and then we'll take any questions. We talked through the kind of electives platform in general. Monica walked us through the 5 competencies, and then we closed with really the 2, quote, easiest approaches to launch manager training. But the intent there is to, for folks who need it, to really get up and running in days or a week and not spend hours and hours and hours of time implementing. So thank you so much for joining. I am going to start pulling up the chat function. So let me see if I can stop sharing. And we'll start answering some questions. Monica, I don't know if you've already seen any that have come in that if we want to kick things off.
I have, yeah. One just sort of logistical question. We got a question about whether we're sharing the presentation with attendees for anybody who wasn't able to join on time. Yes, we will. So look out for an email from us afterward. And then, Jason, I do see a decent number of sort of more content or competency related questions that we can dig into here. So one question that I love is, did you present these competencies in priority order? Is it okay to help managers learn them in any order? I think that's a fantastic question. So I will say the competencies were presented roughly in order of sort of foundational skills when we think about social and emotional learning, sort of starting with foundational skills and working your way up to more technical or specific skills. That said, we do feel that these competencies can be taught in any order. So within our membership program, for example, an employee can choose to take an adaptivity class first if that feels like it's the most urgent thing for their team to do this, or for their team this month. And they may choose to take a trust class later, and that's actually okay. So if we were designing a set of private class like manager programs for someone, we might choose to follow the same order that we presented here in this presentation, but it might depend a little bit on the team and what that team needs.
Excellent. I just saw, we'll kind of bounce around and I'm kind of catching up. So Monica, if I miss things, let me know. So I see one question. Do you have a list of kind of typical classes people could choose from? That's a great question. And actually, let me just go back. I'll share the slides again, because there might be a slide that does this in a better way than a voiceover. Yeah, Monica, do you want to touch on this one here?
Yeah, so this is just a wall of text for you on this slide, but hopefully helping you get a really big, quick overview of the kinds of classes that are offered within electives membership. So as you're looking at this, I'm guessing little keywords are popping out to you. You're seeing things about team decision making and productivity and project management and conflict avoidance and innovation and accountability and all of the things. These classes are not all specifically geared toward managers, but there are a decent number of them that you can see here that are specifically relevant to managers and that probably harken back to specific competencies that we've talked about here today. So as Jason mentioned earlier, we have sort of a set goal of like number of classes in different categories that we offer each month just to make sure there's a little bit of consistency. But every month, the classes that are offered are different from different instructors with different perspectives and backgrounds, and varying up the specific topics a little bit so that, as Jason mentioned earlier, somebody really wants to focus on delegation and someone else really needs to focus on prioritization or something else, they have the ability to choose that. While at the same time, you can continue to feel confident that because everybody is required to take classes within these 5 core competencies in order to earn their certificate for Manager Essentials, you also, as the people person, get to feel confident that they are all still gaining the same core underlying skills that you need everyone to have as a shared group of managers.
Awesome. Thanks, Monica. A lot of the questions are right up your alley, so I'll read another one and I'll keep peppering you if that's okay. But there's a question about just kind of what kind of data do you collect in terms of measuring engagement and effectiveness in general?
Yeah, I think do we have a slide about that as well, Jason? I'm trying to remember. I know we got some good things in this appendix.
Yep. Yeah. So we have kind of high level, and I can go back to that membership dashboard too.
Perfect. Yeah, sounds good. So high level, we are looking to measure within our classes. We always present an opportunity for learners to self-reflect at the end of every class and for them to answer some questions that help us gauge effectiveness of individual classes and programs. And one of the things that we are particularly interested in is this question of behavior change. So we are looking to specifically ask whether behavior people plan to or expect to change their behavior as a result of attending a particular class. And we have pretty positive results here. So we've been refining this over time. We coach our instructors based on these metrics. And we see, again, 92% believe they will change their views or behavior as a result of their experience in an electives class. And we also want to know whether those changes are sticky. So it's great if you think you're going to change something next week, but if you then immediately forget about it, then that's less valuable for the organization. So we also measure whether those changes are going to stick long term. And again, we see pretty positive results there, 86% for electives classes as a whole. And then, yeah, Jason, I know we have different other engagement metrics that we're tracking that I'm sure would be valuable for that question as well.
Yes, I am trying to go back to that slide. 1 second. There we go.
Perfect. So in addition to measuring learning outcomes and behavior change, we are also paying attention to utilization and the behavior of learners within our platform. So we look to see conversion rates from employees who are registered to those who join, to those who enroll in classes, to those who attend the classes. And we offer org admins or clients who have accounts within our platform the opportunity to see those metrics in pretty clear detail, because we know that utilization is a pretty important metric for training efficacy. And being able to break this down and get a sense of, okay, but like who's taking what, and like which employees are the most engaged employees who are taking 1 million classes and are really super users and really dedicated to learning. and what classes are people taking and gravitating toward. We know that that data can be a really rich source of information for you all. Again, we talked about the survey fatigue problem. We know there's a limited number of surveys that you can put in front of people. So we really want to help gather this data for you about people's behavior so that we don't have to rely entirely on putting more and more surveys out there. So all of this data is available in our platform for our folks to dig through and gain insights from about their employee population.
Excellent. I'm going to hit another question where I think we may have a visual to cover at least part of it as well. But Monica, there's a question on just kind of other resources for people kind of after the live class takes place to just reinforce and reference.
Yeah, it's a great question. So we care deeply about live learning. We think that there's a lot of magic that happens in the live class when the instructor and the other participants are getting to really engage with each other, learn from each other, connect, practice, all of those good things. But we also know that the forgetting curve is a very real thing, and it is really important for us to make sure to sort of intercept and reactivate and get people to recall and retrieve information from the class so that it really sticks in long-term memory. So one of the ways that we do that is through a post-class learning page, which is what you're seeing here in the screenshot. So you can see there's a class recording or a video from the instructor. We don't record all of our classes. It'll depend a little bit on the content. There are some classes where, for psychological safety reasons, if we were doing a class about belonging or inclusion, for example, we might decide not to record that. Likewise, we don't record our membership classes. So instead, what we do is we provide an instructor video that folks can access afterward so that they can review that content and also access to slide decks and post-class learning nudges. So these nudges are also emailed to employees at set intervals after the class. The interval was specifically designed to combat the forgetting curve and to help people do that important retrieval work that we know helps consolidate information in long-term memory. So these are all components that sort of work together with the live class to help ensure that the experience is a really strong one from a learning outcomes perspective.
Awesome. I didn't see a question on this, but as I was flipping through the slides, I happened to see the visual. So I'll share a quick anecdote here. But for folks who do enroll in the membership class, one of the early kind of requests we heard was how do we make the learning social? And so let's say you had a group of 10 managers who are in that membership experience. In this example, someone signed up for Intro to Negotiations. They can actually invite their peers to come and take that class with them. It's completely optional to the person who receives that invite. If they want to join, they may see 2 other classes that are more relevant to them or help them earn that certificate program in a more efficient way. But it is really kind of fun and exciting to just get that invitation to say, Monica just signed up for this class and she wants you to take it with you, and then we can learn together and talk about it and debrief afterwards. Even though it's not a quote private cohort class, we can still be in that same session together. I will go back to the closing slide here. Monica, do you see any other questions in the chat that we didn't cover?
Yeah, I see one about other certificates. So someone's asking what other certificates can people earn? This is a great question. So we've been talking about manager training, so focusing on the Manager Essential Certificate, but we actually have 2 other certificates that are live within membership right now that employees are starting to make progress toward earning. One is a Leadership Essential Certificate. This is designed specifically for those high potential employees. And those employees who really want to develop those leadership skills, executive presence skills, strategic thinking skills that we know are really relevant for leadership roles. It's not exclusively designed for people who are have a leadership promotion coming up soon for them. It can be for anyone that you want to keep engaged and helping them sort of grow and continue to work toward a leadership role at some point in the future, either project leadership or actual team leadership. So that's one. Another one that we're excited about is an Innovative Thinking Certificate. And this program is really designed to help people gather some of the different components of innovative thinking. So that includes things like problem-solving skills, strategic thinking skills, creativity skills, things like making sure that they have good skills necessary to use new technology like AI, those kinds of things. So we have 3 certificates that folks can earn right now in membership, and we will be continuing to add more over time.
Amazing. Awesome. We may wrap early. I don't know if Monica, if there's any other questions that have trickled in the last second. Otherwise, we can kind of just share some ideas for next steps.
Yeah, no, I think we got the bulk of them, though. If anybody has been holding a question to themselves and waiting for a spare moment, now is that moment. Please let us know in the chat if you've got anything else that hasn't been addressed so far.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I'll start to wrap us up, but if we get interrupted by a question, that is a pleasant interruption. So please don't hesitate to drop it in the chat. But first off, just thank you. Thank you for joining. I know everyone is super busy. So I think Monica opened up with calling herself a learning nerd. I think our whole team is learning nerds, and we love having these types of conversations. So we have included both my email address and Monica's email address here. If further questions come up, if you want to brainstorm, if you want to talk about learning strategies or manager training within your organization, we love having these conversations. So please don't hesitate to reach out. We are excited to always dive deeper and get feedback and bring some of these concepts that we've been talking about to life. So again, thank you so much for joining. We'll send slides, we'll send the recording, and any questions as you digest this, don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody.